We are live. We are live. We are live. How is everybody doing today? First of all, happy Mother's Day. I had a great Mother's Day. I enjoyed the weather today. I enjoyed my granddaughter playing soccer today. So I had really a really nice time. I know it's the evening and everybody is kind of like wrapping up. So no hard feelings if you guys catch the replay. You know what I'm always gonna ask is if you just share it because you never know who's gonna set free, who's gonna help. But today, everybody knows that I'm celebrating all month with special guests from all over the world. I can't even thank enough. Um, our next guest, my next guest is Gloria Masters. Let me have her come on. She is from New Zealand, y'all. Wednesday, I had somebody from South Africa. She's from New Zealand. Without further ado, let me bring her on. She's an amazing guest. And I can't wait for y'all to meet her. There
Hello.
she is. Everybody, this is Gloria Masters. Now, I'm particularly excited about her presence here because she is actually the pioneer of giving a safe platform for survivors to be able to share their stories just like I'm doing here all the way in the United States. But she's really doing the legwork out there. She's got a nonprofit organization called Hand the Shame Back, which I absolutely love. And then she also has, you know what, I'm going to let you tell it, the event that's coming up in June. It's first ever. Go ahead.
Okay, so hey, Kia ora from New Zealand. Thank you so much, Nettie. Such a pleasure
Yeah.
to be here with you all. And so look, I'm Gloria Masters. I'm the CEO and founder of Handing the Shame Back Foundation, which is a charitable organisation dedicated to you, beautiful survivors watching. So we know the numbers are huge, and what we do is provide resource and support. But equally, I also run a channel called Handing the Shame Back, shock horror, which again is dedicated to all the beautiful adults across the world, however you identify yourselves, who have suffered from child sexual abuse. So we stand beside you and we're here to support you. So that's what I'm currently doing.
You are. You really are. And once I'm connected with someone, I'm a fan for life, and I'm a supporter for life. So I'm always going to support you and everything that you're doing. And I just thank you. I really thank you. I feel this is a topic that can never be not talked about enough. Um, and partly because it's still going on today. Sexual abuse is on a rise, and it's a passion of mine. I know what it felt like when I didn't have the support that I needed. I realized that I needed, and then when it hit home for me, and my kids were affected by it, um, I knew I had a little better sense then to make sure that they get the therapy that they were going to need and the support that they were going to need that I didn't have, so that they can have a fighting chance. And I know you know all too well that in the society that our kids are growing in, they're so um they're affected by what they see, because it's social media has no cap. There is no stopping it. You know what I mean? Like, if they have a phone, they're going to be affected by the things that they see. And so we can safeguard our kids all we want, but we know that if they go to school, they're not in our presence, and they are privy to a lot of the way other people's upbringings are, right? And we can't control that either. All we can do is try to educate or try to make awareness, which is what my platform is really to make people aware, and hope that they hold themselves accountable once they get what they need, or once the information is given. So I would like people to know more about you on a personal level, and share a little bit about your story, because I know it's very It's incredible, actually. Um, so would you mind sharing with us your story?
Thank you. That's beautiful, Nettie. So, look, I was born into a family for child sex trafficking. It was the norm. My father sexualized me from a very early age. The first rape occurred at 4.5, but his mother trained me in the art of seduction, if you like. So from the age of 5, I was trained by her to perform on men and women who would be willing to pay for it. Now, what that meant was there were people that would turn up to her home, to various places I was trafficked from, and they would pay a lot of money to rape and sexually abuse a small child. My father made a lot of money out of me, and this got bigger and bigger as I got older. So I was leased to gangs for weekends. I was taken to Freemasons every month, and their particular things would happen. So we're including things like satanic ritual abuse. And yes, I know it's shocking, but it happens. It still happens.
I
There
think
were,
what I think what's alarming is that you said Freemasonry.
well, the thing is, Nettie, there's a little myth out there, and I just want to clarify that.
Okay.
Not every person, not every man, good men who want to do good in the world that join the Freemasons become part of this pedophile clique. You have to be fairly high up, 33 and a third and above, to reach the level where you are part of this pedophile gang and the satanic ritual abuse that takes place. So, um, there are outraged people all across the world saying to me, no, Freemasons don't do that. Well, actually, at certain levels and above, yes, they did, and they do. And so, unfortunately, that was part of my experience. I was also leased out of a nightclub where I was chained to a bed, and that went on through from the age of 11 to the age of 16. Again, there was a lot of money paid for what people could do to me. And I also feature in over 100 child exploitation, I'm not going to call them pornographic, child exploitation movies. And I just want to share this. For any of your viewers, we have to stop using the term child pornography. Every act of this that's being filmed or a picture taken is actually a crime scene. Let that sink in. So that's just a little bit of my story. I also had forced abortions on me. I was psychologically tortured by my father, who was a psychopath. I was completely abandoned by my mother, and basically fed to him. So, yes, I'm very grateful to be alive, and that's why I wrote my first book, to share that.
I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. I knew a little bit about your story, but I didn't know the depth of it, and it's shocking. How do you feel you were able to overcome certain obstacles to even get to a point where you could write about it?
Well, it took me until about 4 years ago before I could hold my head up high, look anybody in the eye, and say, this happened to me. I was so full of shame. The shame, as it does for a lot of our beautiful survivors, rendered me silent, incapacitated, less than, bad, wrong, all of those things, and it shut me down. And that's why I created Handing the Shame Back, because as you know, Nettie, being on the show, when we speak, we are handing the shame back, and it never belonged to us. So what helped me get through was decades, years and years of therapy, meditation, spiritual help. Um, physical exercise really helped me. And that's all in my second book, actually, which is a guide for survivors of child sexual abuse. So I'm very lucky that I can write, and I'm very lucky that writing helped me.
Hmm. At any point, did you seek professional help, like, for
Oh,
therapy?
yeah, years, decades of therapy, yeah. From probably the age of 32. Um, so, yes, many, many years of therapy. And as you can appreciate, I had 16 years of trafficking. So, I had
Mhm.
16 years to unpack. My father made
Yeah.
so much out of me, he made so much money out of me. My grandmother was paid a commission every time I was leased out of her home. But he made so much money, he imported one of the first Pontiac cars, which was a luxury car back in the day, into New Zealand.
We Did you ever go to school during the times of trafficking?
Yes, yes, it saved my life. Well, many things helped me, but being at school saved me because it was the one place I felt safe, so I could be me. So I was out of control at school. I was always in trouble because the beautiful child I was screaming, will someone help me? Will someone see me? Will someone save me? But no one ever did. So that's why I do what I do, Nettie. That's why
Hmm.
it's very big in me to help other survivors out there. Mm.
Um, I feel as though when I was growing up, now in hindsight, now that I'm thinking, now when I think back, I feel like I grew up in an era where pedophilia was just all around me. You could see it. Now I can remember some of the looks I would get by grown men, or even, older teenage boys. Um and I realized that I mean, a lot of it was around when I was growing up. Um a lot of some of the I remember even a grown adult playing house with us. So I can just imagine if I kept going to, this person's house, what that could have evolved into. Because he was always the husband, and I always tended to be I was always pushed to be the wife, or the mom. But I realized, oh my God, if we had continued going to that house, what would have come from that? And then I find out later on, down the road, that he's been arrested for, you know, molesting his niece. So, it's crazy that when we see kids in school, and I just wish, um, I'm sorry, I'm trying to catch my words after your story here. I wish you said that you were always in trouble. So I wish sometimes teachers would kind of lock in on that, and just, there's got to be more what's going on at home, because when children are acting out, it is a form of attention, and they don't realize they do it, but because they're kids, they don't know how to articulate things. And my golly, Gloria, if I was your parents, I'd be too afraid that you would say something. Like, I wouldn't even send you to school. So I'm just thinking, in their thinking, I mean, did they really have you? Obviously had to have you in check in order for them to feel comfortable sending you to school. Like, I'm just so.
But you would know as a survivor yourself that it's very unlikely for us as children to speak. And the reason I say that is because to this day, if an adult or if an adult and a child sit in front of a any other adult or other adults, 2/3 of the time, the adults will always believe the adult. To this day, people struggle to
Mhm.
believe a child. And so
That's so true.
I was conditioned to not speak because I was threatened. And my father was such a violent, evil psychopath.
Yeah.
I I believed every word he said. If I ever spoke of this, my family members would be killed or the dog would be killed. And that actually happened. The dog was killed. So
Understood.
I was never going to speak, but I was trying to show in every way I could that I was
Sure.
really traumatized child here.
Yeah.
Today, you wouldn't have a choice as a teacher. You'd be saying what's wrong. But today,
I think
unfortunately, they get the parents in first. And often we know that over 93% of this is perpetuated by people well known to the child. And that can
absolutely.
include parents and people that live in the house. So
Mhm.
it's, yeah. Yes, so that that all happened. Yeah.
For those of you who might be tuning in, or if this is any triggering, I know if you have to walk away or come back, we understand this was not meant to be triggering, but it is relevant, because this sort of thing is happening today with children all over the world. And this is just one story. And unfortunately, children don't get a chance to choose their parents. In this situation, Gloria did not get to choose her parents, and put her through an enormous amount of stress on top of the sexual abuse that she encountered. Thank you for being here with us. Um, I know that you said that you've been doing this now only 4 years. Is that right?
Well,
As far as
the
advocating.
memoir got published 2 years ago, and I started the channel up um, about 14 months ago. So it's
So
all
nice.
pretty new. But yeah, look, anything we can do to help the beautiful survivors out there, because there are many of us. And yeah, so I guess the other thing too is, we do have a global awareness day coming up, our first one.
No, I'm so excited.
And as part of that, that's Friday, the 16th of June. And what we're doing during that day is asking everyone, Nettie, to swap out their logo on their social media platforms to ours. And it's easy enough to do. We'll have a link available. But the reality is, if we can do that again, we're just trying to stand beside our beautiful survivor family,
Hmm.
and just spread the word and help show support. And the second part of that is that we are asking people to go to our website and make a $5 or $10 donation to our cause. And then the third part is I will be releasing on that day the hand signal, global hand signal for children and teenagers to use when they are not safe. So that's all happening on Friday the 16th.
So I'm gonna be a part of that. Online, of course.
It's
um,
amazing. But the other thing you can do to help if you want to is on the Saturday, the following day, we're asking people all over the world at 10 a.m. their time, so 10 a.m. on the 17th, wherever you are in the world, to grab a friend or grab a group or grab your dog and go for a walk, even for 30 minutes,
okay.
and dedicate it to handing the shame back, which is helping our survivors. All you do is take a picture, send it to us or tag us in, and we then put you in our reel. And so far, we have people from Africa, the States, Canada, Australia, the UK, who have reached out and said they'd like to be part of it. So if you'd like to be part of it, We will keep posting, and all information is on handingtheshameback.org. So,
Well, I will be donating, and I will be somehow however part I can play, I will play a part. I told you I'm
yeah,
a supporter for life. I
I
love what
know.
you're doing. I so appreciate you, and everyone that you're connected to. I know that sometimes it can be discouraging. You know, when you hear news stories come out, especially with young kids. I know for me, it used to be such a bad trigger. I used to get anxiety over it. And so it what it looks like to me now is just okay. Now that's a different direction that we need to go in. Now it's just a it's like a it leads me to now I got to do something, I got to do something else, or now I have to pay attention closer to that. So
Yeah.
now it's more, it's like, it's just, I
There's,
didn't think I
there's,
was going to be
there's a
this
lot to
emotional.
do. There's a lot to do, and
There
there's a lot of
is.
us out there, and we just need to stand beside each other and
Oh,
shine light on this with love and humility. There is a way through, and
you're so
yes,
positive, and how it didn't break your spirit. Like, how I know that you had to do a healing journey, right? A healing process. What did that aside from the list of things that helped you get there? What was it like when you hit a hit a wall and you felt like you couldn't, you know what I mean? Get out of that.
well, oh, 100%. Look, between the ages of 11 and 12 and a half were the very worst times in my life. And
Mm,
my mother had left the family home, and I was left with the monster, my father and my brother. And it was at that time I tried to take my own life 3 times. And I just didn't know clearly what I was doing, and it didn't work. But the point was, the depths of despair were there. And in the fast track to an adult, trying to make sense of this, or trying to even accept it or integrate it, was uh, the most painful time of my entire life. But there was something in me, you see, and it was something called hope. And what it did was, I just knew I had to keep breathing. I had to keep trying. There was something about, the light in the sky, or I felt angels around me, or, I would
mm,
just try and focus on the one thing that would keep me going. And so I did. And here I am. And I guess if there's one little message for the beautiful survivor family out there in your audience, is when nothing feels possible, hope stands up.
I admire you and admire your strength.
Yeah.
When did you finally kick the can and say, you know what, I'm out of here? How did you break away?
Oh, that it wasn't. I was very fortunate. A couple of miracles occurred, but the one was this: my parents had always agreed that on the day I turned 16, I could choose whether to where I wanted to be, and whether my father could have access to me. And the reason for that is I got returned to him at the age of 12 and a half I got returned to my mother at the age of 12 and a half, and my father still had a lot of access. So the day I turned 16, it was over. I never had to see him again. So apart from events in the future, like a funeral or a family wedding, I never did willingly ever see him again. And I escaped simply because legally neither parent could make me see him or go anywhere near him.
At age
But
16.
yeah, that's why our Global Awareness Day is Friday 16th.
Clever.
It's a very big number in my life.
Mhm.
and it freed me that day. But I think the power of being trapped and enslaved and dehumanized consistently by my father and brother was what nearly broke me. The sexual abuse and the trafficking and the child exploitation movies were one thing. The physical abuse was horrendous, but the psychological torture, it was
Yeah.
torture, was what nearly broke me. And somehow I made it through, and that's why I I've chosen this path, and it's just very big in me. Even if I wanted to not do this, I don't have a choice. I'm just pushed all the time. I've got big ass angels behind me pushing me all the time. So I think because I've been able to come through it, and it's taken many, 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 many years,
Mhm.
I'm able to shine a beacon of light for others to step forward. And that's all I want to do. So
That's all I want to do too.
now
It's
look
what
who
it,
you're helping. Look at the amazing people you're helping.
well, all I know is that I have a great support system, right? And I think that's probably the biggest part. There was a time when I first started, it was just me and me and one of my friends, you know. And she was just like, no, I mean, I she's a friend, but she was also my, my poetry coach. And she was just like, no, it's time, this is you, this is what you've been wanting for. And then, like, it started with just poetry pieces, and going to open mics and being able to share, some of my poetry pieces about my assault. And um and that turned into lines of women wanting to talk to me. One time I was at a open mic, and one of a young girl. Well, she's younger than me. She's like uh, I'm in my mid 40s. So I'm 40. I think I probably was about 45, and she crawled all the way from one side of the room to get to me to cry in my lap. And I'm like, and God had to show me, like, yeah, when you're walking in your purpose, this is what it looks like. And so I sat there, and she cried. She goes, I don't know why I'm crying. I don't know why I'm crying. I said, He knows. And I'm here. And all I did was console her. And all I did was say my piece, a poetry piece that I thought was just for me, that I wrote just for me, and then I realized it wasn't just for me. Before I even shared that piece to the world, I had put it in an album, right? Like, if I had an album, this is what it would be on. So my son, he, produces my music behind my poetry. And so I happened to be playing it in the car, and I realized, well, what I realize now, it was my granddaughter listening. And she goes, what secret did you keep when you were 6? And I told her, I said, you know what? You're old enough for me to tell you what happened to me. It's probably time that you and I have a discussion, about that. And when I started to tell her, she couldn't stop crying. And I'm like, baby, what's wrong? Like, what happened? And she couldn't even she couldn't even talk to me. It was so emotional. And so she too was 6 when she was abused. And then from there, I was like, all right, I know what to, I was like, if it freed her at age 9 to be able to tell me, and of course, I went through the law, and reported, and things that didn't happen for me that I felt like should have happened for me. I was able to be there for her, and that was a whole long drawn out experience. But I realized in that moment, and maybe it was a couple months later, I'm like, if it helped her, imagine who it could help. And so that's kind of like where I'm at with that. And so Um, I don't
How
know.
beautiful and how healing, how therapeutic. How
Yes.
powerful. 6, the same age, man.
I'm grateful, and yes,
Yeah.
there's a long, so for parents who are listening, and if you find out that your child, first of all, make a safe space for your kids to be able to come and talk to you regularly. If you are a parent that always yells and you don't really have a calm or approachable spirit, your kids will not talk to you. I had to learn that the hard way. I was 15 years old when I had my first child, and I didn't know any better. So I didn't bridge that gap for her, or I'm learning to be a parent myself. And so my kids, when I started having children at an adult age, um and now know better, right? Those group of kids in my household got a different mom, than my first child did. So, but I still was a yeller, and I still was not approachable. It took another situation to happen in my household where it was designed to take me out, honestly, to kill myself, honestly, because now that same spirit that was on me, pedophilia and being sexually assaulted and all of that when I was a child, followed me into my marriage. And then I realized I married a pedophile. So it's
Yeah.
like, wow. I mean, I thought I knew all I needed to know. And it just goes to show the ignorance that I had. I had no idea. I had no idea what I was up against. Living with someone who was calculating and, um, waiting for a certain age for our daughters to grow. And it was, listen, it was devastating. So I'm saying all that to say that I'm saying all of this to say that there's accountability, right, as a parent that we need to have. And we cannot expect our children to come to us to talk to us if we don't create that safe space for them to do so. So,
Yeah, and but I also think I'm just going to see what you think of this, Nettie.
mm-hmm,
Children don't really need to say anything because their behaviour shows us everything, and
mm,
so partly why I'm releasing that global hand signal is so that children have an easy 3-step method to do so. And the point is we need to give them non-verbal ways to communicate because it's very much an adult thing, I think, to have a conversation. See how easy it is for you and I as adults to do that. For children, their cognition is not really where ours is. So what they do is they show us through their play, through their behavior,
mm-hmm.
and through their body language. So I think it's really important for parents watching, in my humble opinion, that
You're right.
we start to notice. And look, when that hand signal is released, it's a very easy one. We've tested it on children as young as 2. We've got teenagers who love it. We've got children who are going to be able to use this. And it's a global signal for help. So I think the thing is we've got to give our children and grandchildren
And I
um,
just
some tools to use.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
So that's what I think about that. You're absolutely right.
No,
I
no,
mean,
I
we
mean,
do
I
want to
hear what
make
you were
sure.
saying. Yeah, yeah.
No, for sure. And I'm only saying that because even with my younger son, even when I role play with him and things like that, he still, chooses not to tell me things,
Yeah,
So you're right about that.
yeah.
Um
I think
that
so. Well, we just know that children don't tend to do that, but they tend to show us
even as
through their act. Yeah.
right, even as much as we want them or create a safe space, you're right. You're absolutely right.
The other little thing I think you'll love is that it's a little bit like what you do with your poetry. You can release with words. I think the other thing with children is we can give them paper and pen, and we can get
Mm,
some, because abusers or pedophiles will always say, if you ever tell anyone, well, that's a verbal thing, but they haven't said
yeah,
if you ever write it down. So,
mm, that's true. Jesus. Hold on.
hey, am I able to show you my guide?
Yeah, please do.
Because I think this is survivors across the world tell me this is amazing and it's really helped them.
And this
Is
is
that
your
a
book,
good?
right?
Yeah, this is the guidebook I wrote for adult survivors. And the thing, Nettie, I think you'll love, because you're such a creative person, is that contained in the book are all these mantras, and they've got the most beautiful images throughout.
Mm,
So, for instance, you'll see the mantras. I trust my mind is powerful,
mm,
I see beauty in everything. And I think what happens in the book is it's a guidebook. So I might focus on an area for adult survivors where, for instance, we might have something around boundaries because our boundaries were broken. So I've written a few pages around boundaries, and then I have a
yes.
couple of exercises for the survivor to do, which means that they can then think about the boundaries they're setting and how to manage their way through. And
Mhm,
it's people tell me it's really good. And I think too, because it's a flight path, what happens is you choose your journey destination, and
mhm,
you choose the way you want to manage your travel itinerary. And they all consist of it's quite clever, I think. They all consist of things like, for instance, I said to you at the beginning, what really helped me was my meditation and physical exercise. So that then becomes part of my travel itinerary because I use
mhm,
those predominantly to help me navigate the trauma. And
mhm.
then as we go through the book, I bring up the different trauma responses, and I call them the 4Fs, and the thoughts we have and how they may not help us. And then we get to the end of the book where the survivor gets a degree.
Oh, wow.
And
I love that.
that is your passport stamp. And it's basically saying, it's so beautiful. This passport entitles the traveller to live the rest of their life in peace and harmony. This
That is
cannot
beautiful.
be returned, refunded, or exchanged. The bearer has waited a lifetime for this trip. And then, they fill it in. And all of these beautiful images, these can all be perforated. So, for instance, if this particular mantra speaks to you, it's perforated down here. It's made of thick, glossy
So you can
cardboard, and you
take
can
it
take
out.
it out and put it on your mirror, or in your car or
Oh,
wherever you like.
that's so beautiful.
I know. I so love it.
Listen, I need you to send me a link, your direct link, so I can put it on our Facebook post of where people can
Awesome.
get your books, okay? And then
Awesome.
I have your website that I'm gonna post later after
Sure.
our chat.
Yeah. Yeah.
And thank you for just wanting to come and celebrate with me and show face. And I just needed people to see who you are. I also have some people who advocate for the sex, for sexual abuse, and they might reach out to you. So,
That's
but
amazing. But look, keep up the amazing work because, together we're stronger. There are many of us across the world, and it's such a privilege to be here. And I so appreciate you reaching out. Thank you, Nettie.
oh my God, it's really my pleasure, honestly. But I told you I'm gonna be a fan for life.
You keep
I'm
writing
a
that
fan for
poetry.
life. Yes. And so I'll leave you with one, okay? This one is called Infinity Wars, since we're just, having a chat. This is called, yeah, Infinity Wars. I am a victim of molestation, but not once, but twice in my childhood life. And it wasn't just twice in my life, but it was by two selfish people, one of which was a continual perpetual cycle. It was as if they saw me as weak because I didn't speak out about the horrors that were being done to me. And most times I go days where life is just a complete blur. And I don't know what day or time it is. It's like I'm stuck in that sunken place and I want to get out. So I become desensitized to all the world. And as I lay on my left side, I prefer my backside exposed because I don't want to come face to face with the reality of being stripped from my innocence. And even though I was a child and I thought like a child, but I couldn't put childish things away because of this yoke around my neck and this bondage that bound my thoughts and the lies that brought my confidence level to a defeat. So I just laid there waiting to be devoured by an evil depression. To describe it, it was be an understatement trying to explain its true form. And never going to therapy seemed to bring its own never-ending pestilence and slavery to the very thing I couldn't utter out loud for help because it was always just swept under the rug, so to speak. And I held my parents responsible for me, but now that I'm an adult, I have to compartmentalize all of these different emotions because they come in different forms. But one must wonder how a person gets bitten by the multiple personality bug because it's easy to be somewhere else. It's easy to become someone else in your mind while unspeakable acts are being done to your body and mind. And now, how this affects a person long term when it finally sinks in, well, that's when their true journey begins. Infinity Wars. So I called it that. I called it that because it was a constant war that I was battling. And not
Yes,
because I liked, Marvel so much, because they have a movie called Infinity Wars, but it was a constant battle. I was wrestling in my mind, and there were so many things, I realized that, do I have, borderline personality disorder? Because, I would often reenact things in my mind to see how I would better, survive it next time. And I don't know why I was doing things like that. And now even as an adult, and I have to, I say in my poetry that I'm compartmentalize all my emotions. I had to put them in different levels because I was dealing with different levels of depression. It's like it was bizarre to me, like, happy in front of people. Like I did such a good show of being happy, but then, behind closed doors, I was a monster. And
mm,
so, oh my gosh, like I just remember it just being all over the place. And it was like a wave of just, being all over. You'll wrestle with yourself before you'll wrestle with somebody in real life. Like, I don't know why that is. All I know is that the battle is in the mind. A lot of it is in the mind. And so that's why I figured, I said, let me write this piece because how I needed to kind of release all of those parts of my life that make up who I am today. So
well, you're a gift to the world, and thank you so much. That was amazing.
thank you. Well, I mean, this concludes our hour. Was there anything else you'd like to share or leave with us today before you go back?
Actually, yes. So this
Yeah.
might surprise you. This beautiful. I designed the covers for both of these books.
Okay.
This is my memoir,
Angel wings. Angel wings. Okay.
My Flight from Trauma to Grace.
Okay. So that's another book I got to get. No problem. I got it. As soon
Well,
as we get off.
people, this seems to be the book people want to buy, but it's the story of my life. And there's me as
Mhm.
the 11-year-old looking down, and the angel wings coming round. So beautiful, powerful
Yeah.
book. But, you know, it's truth, so it's raw. But I love the fact that, for you, it's poetry. For me, it's books. and
Mhm.
narration, and it's just a release. So I guess one final thing to
Mhm.
your followers is however you release it is fine, it's your way, but find a way to release it.
That's right.
Yeah. So you're
Well,
handing the
you
shame back. Yeah.
yes, yes, I am. And
Yeah.
then this platform is called "They Took My Choice Away," but you often say that, even to your survivors who are telling the story, like often we don't get our choices. Our choices were taken from us, and so
That's right. So
but I love the fact that I can hand the shame back because it's
yeah.
not mine. It's no longer mine.
Never
It was never
was.
meant
It
to
never
be. Never
never
was.
was.
Woo! All right, some powerful stuff here. Catch the replay, guys. And you know what I'm gonna ask? Share. And because you never know who it's gonna help, who it's gonna free.